Hello, my name is John Beskup, and this is a Synchronous tutorial on how to make glitch percussion. As you can see in front of you, you've got a Synchronous here, and I've drawn in a few curves that look like cityscapes. They're not doing all that much. There's a little bit of distortion being added from curve 2 and a little bit of reverb being added from curve 3. What's interesting about this is what happens on the back side. I'm going to flip it around to the back of the rack. You can see curve 1 and the inverted curve 2 are outputting, as well as curve 3 is feeding into curve 2 for the freeze function, which is a minor detail. But curve 1 right here and curve 2 inverted are fed up to this combinator CV input. This is really the gold mine of ideas in this tutorial, flipping back around to the front. Now that you've got it in the combinator CV programmer input, you can really unleash it. So I'm going to take CV input 1 and send that to this arpeggiator right here. And I'm going to take CV2, which is actually inverted, and route that to the pitch bend of an NNXT, which is controlled by that arpeggiator. And in the sequencer section, I have drawn in just some very simple chords here, which have every note in the scale. So it doesn't really matter what this is, just any note, as long as every note is being hit at some point, and then it loops. So going back to the rack, what I'm going to do is in this empty NNXT, I'm going to click on the load button right here and load samples. Zoom back out. And in the Kong patches, Kong sounds and samples, percussion, and then the woods directory, what I'm doing is just selecting every sample in the woods directory, hitting OK, bring them in. As you can see here, it loads them into the entire key range from C1 to C6. That's no good. What we need to do is right click and go down to Auto Map Zones Chromatically. This is very important here. Auto Map Zones Chromatically. I'm going to hit that, and what it does, you can see here, now it's taken all those notes and distributed them. So each individual sound is an individual note. And the point of doing that is that this is being fed by an arpeggiator with every note in the scale, so it's going to be hitting every single one of these notes randomly, thanks to the random function of the arpeggiator right here. So if I hit play, two things are happening here. As you can see, the pattern is going crazy, and that's because in the arpeggiator, which I've named randomizer, you can see the CV input 1 is controlling the pattern. So that's under pattern and pattern. There's possible 60-some thousand values, as you can see here, so it's just jumping wildly between all of them, which is really awesome, and it gives us the varying rests that are the hallmark of this glitch percussion style. And also another thing that's happening is the pitch wheel here is being varied as the samples go along, which by itself isn't super obvious, but here's where it's controlled under percussion samples, which is the name of the NNXT. CV input source 2 is going to pitch bend, and I've got it reduced slightly from the maximum. It's not the full values, it's just toggles it around the middle of the range. And so those are the two main things right there. Again, we're using the CV input from the programmer to route through the key mapping here and do the modulation routing. This is really, I'm using it to do one thing. This is infinitely variable in its uses. So you could come up with many other creative uses for the Synchronous device using that input method. So what I'm going to do now to showcase actually what this is producing is go back to the main mixer and unmute a second channel of the exact same thing with different samples. So I've got this thing called Sample Mayhem. It's the exact same concept, exact same setup. So now you can hear we've got a lot of little random blips and bleeps being triggered. And if I put this under some drum loops, it sounds pretty cool. There you have it, glitch percussion using the Synchronous. Hope you enjoyed the video. There's a longer version if you look in the comments.